Morning. Okay. We are on Daf Mem He Yomid Beis, 45b. And what we were learning about, we talked at length about is the concept of lulav growing, that the way the mitzvahs are done and the way they grow. And we discussed about connecting that idea of derech gedilasan to other mitzvahs. And there seems to be room for research in that where like why don't certain mitzvahs have this law of kedilasan and some do. Why doesn't it apply to the schach? So the bach. Um, but even with the bach, it wasn't so simple to differentiate, uh, just because the branches are sometimes on a horizontal setup in the tree. They're horizontal, so therefore they could be horizontal to what what does that refer to? The horizontal, does that apply to the lulav and esrog? So it's definitely something um, to look further into, and also why other mitzvahs don't have it. Seems to be a lot of other mitzvahs, even like Mitzvah that we learned about in Parsha, the dipping of the hyssop in the eitz erez, the ezoi, v'shnita las. They would dip it b'dam hatzibar shchuta v'mayim achayim, and they would sprinkle it on the person, on the house, and so on. So all of that would that also have to be done in a way of derech gedilasan. And we spoke about the samim. Should that have to be derech gedilasan? And then the Gemara spoke about the greatness of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Very apropos, we're coming up to Lag BaOmer, Rashbi. I once heard a vart that Rav Shimon, the Gemara, Yochai is always spelled without an aleph. It's Rav Shimon ben, it's almost like Rav Shimon ben Yochi without the aleph. Of course, we know his name is Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Once heard a vart that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai without the aleph is gematria Yedid Nefesh of Harachma, close friend of the Eibishter. So I guess in order to have that gematria, they removed the aleph from his name to bring out the great love that Hashem had for Rashbi. The Gemara mentions how Rashbi was spoke about protecting the world from punishment, and the way Rashi understands it seems like more like an individual, like each individual would be protected from punishment. Rabbeinu Hananel, I think I might have mentioned.
You talk about the pain.
I think I might have mentioned Rabbeinu Hananel on Friday, that Rabbeinu Hananel learns that it's not about the individual punishment he was trying to protect the people from, but the communal punishment, like bringing a flood on the world, the things like that. That is what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was saying, that I could protect the world from punishment. Not that the individuals would be exempt from punishments for their sins, but more that the world as a whole, I could protect the world from communal punishments. And he speaks about his son Elazar and Yosam, that they protect the world from the beginning of creation until the end, ad soifai. If he has his son with him and he has Yosam, you include all three of them, you got the three big hitters. And we mentioned that there is another version of this, that instead of his son, it includes Avram Avinu, who's such a we saw quoted from a Rashi in Divrei Hayamim.
Some sources call him Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Why is that?
Well, Ben Yochai, Bar Yochai, Bar is Aramaic, Ben is Hebrew. That's all. So that's not really a difference. But if you spell Yochai differently, it's spelling the name wrong or spelling the name differently. That's more surprising, So then the Gemara mentioned about Rashbi saying that there's very few B'nai Aliyah. B'nai Aliyah, the way Rashi mentioned, the way Rashi explains it, he says it's referring to people that are makabel B'nai Shchina. They are people who are able to receive divine revelations, Hashem's presence. And he says there's very few of them, that the Gemara says, very few. And Rashbi says it could be that there's 1,000, could be 100, maybe there's only 2. And if it's 2, it's me and my son. If it's 100, if it's 1,000, we're included in those B'nai Aliyah. And the Gemara deals with, really, are there so few? Doesn't it say there's 18,000? And the Gemara answers that, yeah, there's a difference between Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira and Aspaklaria Deloy Mistakli Ba'aspaklaria Ha'me'ira. There are those that are able to see with a generally Aspaklaria is a magnifying glass. Aspaklaria, a magnifying glass that shines, and there are those that are that do not see with a shining magnifying glass, which means it's interesting because Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira sometimes it's used to refer to a mirror, sometimes used to refer to magnifying glass, just a clear glass. But the Aspaklaria She'ina Me'ira is sort of like a tint on the glass. So there's some type of cloudy blockage on the screen. There's something that's blocking the vision. So the question is, how clearly do you see the Shechina? Some see it in Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira, and some see it in a way that's an Aspaklaria She'ina Me'ira. That it's not a clear screen. It's sort of just opaque or clouded, and so that's what Rashbi was saying, that there's very few Aliyah, B'nai Aliyah, that see it in Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira, and is clear, to be able to see it clearly. That's very few. Now, the Gemara says, really, are there so few? What about the fact that there's 36 tzaddikim? And they're makabel pnei shchina, they're makabel shchina every day. Ashrei kol choichei loy, it says. Praiseworthy are all those who are machake, who await Hashem, and loy is gematria 36. So it shows that there's really 36 tzaddikim. So why are you saying that there might only be 2? So on that, the Gemara says it's not a contradiction. There are tzaddikim that need permission to come in, and there are tzaddikim that can come in without permission, and that is very few. So it comes out is that there's very few, that there's tzaddikim that can enter in and out without permission, and they see Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira. They see clearly. That is very few. Then you have 36. And those 36 are makabel pnei shchina every day. They're able to see the shchina, Aspaklaria Ha'me'ira, clear vision, but they need to ask permission before they enter. And then there are many, 36,000, that are able to receive the shchina, but they see it with a screen blocking them, with some type of a unclear, it's not 100% clear, their view. It's a Aspaklaria She'ina Me'ira. Then the Gemara mentioned that B'shas Petirasan, when they would leave the ceremony, what would they say? And they would mention this thing, Yoifi l'cham mizbeach, or l'kol l'cham mizbeach. And the Gemara is bothered with the mishtatif shem shamayim davar acher. You're including Hashem's name with something else. Normally, that's not allowed. It's not appropriate. Even though we do find places in Chumash and in Tanakh where there are times when when it includes we do find such things where it mentions like Moshe Rabbeinu and the Eibishter, or mentions I think there's a story with Gidon and it includes. So sometimes we do find that you mention Hashem and and someone else. And the commentaries explain that when the other item could be used as an avodah zara, that's when we're concerned. If we're not, if the other entity is not like a question possibly going to be used for avodah zara, then we wouldn't have any concern about it. Then we don't have to worry about it. So here, we're surprised that we're going to say in the same sentence, Hashem and the Mizbeach. We want to thank you, Hashem and the Mizbeach, or praise you, Hashem and the Mizbeach. And the Gemara's answer to that is that L'ka anachnu moidim, L'ka to Hashem, we are moida, we acknowledge that you are our God and we trust in you. We're not going to deny you. We submit ourselves to you. And L'cha anu meshabchim, to you we praise, and to you, I'm sorry, L'cha anachnu moidim, L'cha anachnu moidim, u'L'cha, and to you the Mizbeach we give praise that you atone for us. And then the Gemara repeats it, meaning that they would repeat it when they said this. They would say, L'cha anachnu moidim, L'cha anu mekalsim, to you, to Hashem, we submit ourselves, and to you, the Mizbeach, we also give praise. And I mentioned the Maharsha says that there's a difference. One of them is about dibor, speech, and the other one is maisa, action. That was the Maharsha's insight. That why it's why would it be repetitious? Why would the statement, why would they double? Why would they say it twice, seemingly repetitious? And on that, the Maharsha explains that it's one is referring to Dibur, and the Maharsha adds that it's in connection with Miriam Bas Bilga, that she did an act that was very inappropriate. She screamed at the Mizbeach and she banged on the Mizbeach. So she banged on it with her sandal, with her shoe. So what we're doing is basically saying the opposite, that we're praising the Mizbeach with words and with our actions. And then I mentioned on Friday about the B'shas P'tirason. When they would leave the Mizbeach, they would say like these praises, and I connected it with maybe there's some connection between that and the fact that we sort of say goodbye to the Mizbeach, to the Sukkah, on outside of Israel we do it on Shmini Atzeres, when we find the final dwelling in the Sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, and Eretz Yisrael they do it on Hoshana Rabbah, just like it's B'shas P'tirason. At the end, when they would leave the Mizbeach, they would sort of like give praise to the Mizbeach, and I don't know, maybe there's some connection why we say goodbye to the Sukkah. And in Eretz Yisrael, it's done on the same day, on the day of Hoshana Rabbah. That would be seems similar. Okay, now we're up to the next Gemara, K'maseu B'choil, and this Gemara is about 15 lines up from the bottom of the page on 45b. K'maseu B'choil, the way it was done in the weekday, where the way they did the Rava ceremony, that's the way it was done also on Shabbos, except that they would have to cut the Aravos before Shabbos, and they would keep them fresh by having them in water, but they would have to cut them before Shabbos for this Arava ceremony. Now, the Gemara also, the Mishnah also had mentioned that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika says that they would use chariyos shel dekel. Now, chariyos shel dekel means the palm fronds. That's what they would use for this ceremony. And we mentioned that the Rishonim try to figure out, did he argue on the first opinion and say they did not use aravos, they only used palm fronds, or does he add something that in addition to the aravos they would use palm fronds? And that's the simple understanding, seemingly, is that we're dealing with palm fronds. There is one of the Rishonim that wants to say, no, it's exactly like an extra lulav they would use. That they would use chariyos, it uses the term chariyos shel dekel. A lulav is a palm frond, but it's early stage. And so the simple understanding of the Mishnah is that for the regular lulav and esrog ceremony, you use the young lulav. And for the Arava ceremony, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, they use the old lulav, the lulav after its leaves spread out and get hard, and it basically looks like a palm frond. So that's the simple understanding. But there is one of the Rishonim, the Ritva, seems to understand that it's what they would use. They would actually use the young lulav, just like they use the young lulav just like we use that for the lulav and esrog. So that's what it refers to. But in any event, that's what the Gemara is going to be dealing with, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika's opinion. Amar Rav Huna. Again, we're on page 45b. We are 15 lines up from the bottom of the page. David, do you want to just tell us what page it is in the Steinsaltz?
It's 222, 223.
223, okay. Amar Rav Huna says, my taima de Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. What is the reason of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, who says you use these palm fronds and either in addition or in substitution for the aravos? What's the reason? Where does he get this from? So he says dechsev kapois. So the Rav Huna says because it says kapois, and it says it in the plural. I'm sorry. It's pronounced. Excuse me. It's pronounced in the plural, and so the chsiv kapois. Literally, the word is written without the oy. It's just kaf pei tuf without the vav in it. But it's pronounced kapois. So we understand from the way it's pronounced that it's kapois. It's shnayim. It says two, and mean the plural, which means achas lulav. One is for the lulav, v'yachas lamizbeach, and one of these kapais tamam. Kapais just means branches, so it's a branch for the mizbeach. And for whatever reason, we understand that the branch for the mizbeach was according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, it's an older branch, and it was there's one for the lulav and one for the mizbeach. Both of them are basically branches of a palm tree. Date palm. Now, so that's the source according to Rav Huna. And the rabbis, of course, argue and say, no, we don't use two lulavs or two palm branches. We use one, and for the arava ceremony, we use aravos. For the Shana Rabbah, that's arava. So the Rabbanon, the rabbis say, kapas ksiv. It's written kapas without the vav. It's actually missing a letter. The word kap. So it's pronounced maybe kapais, but it's spelled kapas. So because it's spelled kapas, we're not supposed to darshan. We're not supposed to expound that it means plural. It means singular. What is the kapas that we use? The kapas that we use is the lulav for the lulav and esrog. We don't use another type of branch for the. There's another type of palm branch for the other ceremony. No, kapas. So what comes out is that the way Rav Huna is explaining, or the way according to the way Rav Huna is explaining this argument between Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika and the rabbis, is yesh aim la mikra or yesh aim la masaidas. Do we give priority to the way a word is pronounced or the way a word is spelled in the tradition, the way it was passed down, that's the way to write it. And in the Torah, it's written without the vav, but it's pronounced with the vav. So which one do we darshan? Which one do we consider the priority or the main? What is the main one? Is it the mikra, the way it's pronounced, or the Mesiras, the way it traditionally passed down in writing? And so that seems to be the argument, according to the way Rav Huna is explaining it, between Rabbi Yochanan and Ben Breika, because it pronounced kapos, but it's spelled kapas. That would be a debate. That would be the source of the debate. If you use these chariyos shel dekel, these branches of a palm, in order for the ceremony. Now, Reb Levi says kitamar, that is just like a tamar, just like a date, that the reason Rabbi Yochanan and Ben Breika holds that we use these palm fronds, date palm fronds, is not because of a pasuk, but because we're bringing out an idea. We're bringing out emphasis of the greatness, the praise for the Jewish people. That the Jewish people are like a tamar, like a date palm. We are like a date palm, a date tree. Ma tamar zeh, just like a date palm. Ein loy ela lev echad. Date palm only has one heart, and meaning that the palm trees are very unique, that they don't really have branches that have sap. They have one trunk, and everything else are just just leaves, so to speak. But there are no branches that hold the leaves. The trunk holds the leaves, and so even the whole frond is really just a leaf. It's a big leaf, or a leaf with other leaves. So it basically there's no sap, only on the trunk. And the trunk is the only thing that has sap. So just like a tamar, a date palm, only has one heart, only has sap in one area. So Af Yisrael ein lahem ela lev echad la'avim shebashamayim. Also the Yidden, they only have one heart to their Father in heaven, and meaning that this is praise for Klal Yisrael, that we submit ourselves to the Eibishter completely, and it's not like we have different desires for others. No, just all we want is Aviyam Shabashamayim, is our Father in heaven, which basically seems to be in connection maybe with the idea that there's the Yetzer Toiv and the Yetzer Hara. There's the Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Bahamis, the two souls, the right side of the heart, the left side of the heart. B'chol levavcha, we're supposed to serve Hashem with all our heart, and that even the Yetzer Hara, we're supposed to try to get even the Yetzer Hara to love Hashem. And so the Lev Echad is saying that we ultimately accomplish. We have B'chol levavcha, that B'shnei Yitzarecha, that both of our Yetzers love Hashem. We have one heart. It's like we have one. They're really like one, because Yidden, we love the Eibishter. So ein lahem ela lev echad. So we bring out this idea by doing this ceremony, by using the date palm fronds, that we are ein lahem, ein lo ela lev echad, ein lahem ela lev echad. The Jewish people only have one heart. And Rashi over here says that he says it refers to moich, like sap, and it says all the other trees they have sap even in their branches, but here it's only the middle one. And he says that it's a svara, it's a siman yafel kilusan shel Yisrael. It's a good sign about praise for the Yidden. So this is a great praise for the Yidden. So it comes out that according to Reb Levi, it's not based on a pasuk; it's based on a svara, on logic. In other words, it's logical. Tosfos over here brings out some differences based on these two sources. According to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, the way Rav Huna explains Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika is based on a pasuk. The way Rav Levi explains it is it's just a svara. So Tosfos says that according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, it would seem that the Arava ceremony, what we do as the Arava ceremony, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika, he would hold that it was instead of the Aravas, he would use these date palm branches, fronds. And he says you can't say, it doesn't make sense to say he only holds that you use these date palm fronds on the seventh day, but rather every single day of Sukkot, what we do as the Arava ceremony, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika argues and says, no, you use Chariyah Shel Dekel. And they learn it from Arvei Nachal, that it's two Arava ceremonies. You have the Arava and the Lulav, you have the Arava ceremony. That's the way the other opinion understands it. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says, I learned it from Kapois, that you have two Kapois ceremonies, two ceremonies with the Lulav. So it comes out that it's exactly the same as the Arava rules, and he just substitutes the Arava, the willows, with a date palm frond. And the rabbis learn it from a halacha l'maisha Sinai. They also hold all seven. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika understands when it says Arvei Nachal, he understands it like the other commentaries explain, that there's different, that the Arvei could be used for, there's other translations of what Arvei is, not necessarily to teach you that there's a whole Arava ceremony. And he doesn't hold of the halacha l'maisha Sinai that you use, that you have an Arava ceremony. And it comes out that Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika would hold you do the 7 days. Now, there is a little problem because the Mishnah does say, V'oisei hayoim. What did the Mishnah say? Go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that Oisoi Hayoim. Arava 7 days. Yom Shvi, Arava is called. Oh, I'm sorry. So it says the mitzvah. The mitzvah is Arava. How is it done? So it gives the whole that there was a place called Meitzah. Get the Murbias Shal Arava. Zaykvin say Tzidi Hamizbeach. Talk about Riva Taku. B'chol Yom Akivan as Hamachas. Oisa Yom Akivan as Shava Pa'amim. What would they do? And then it says Chariyah Shel Dekel Hayom Aviyim. At the end of the whole discussion, it says Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika says Chariyah Shel Dekel they would bring, and the Oisei Hayoim was called Yom Chibot Chariyos. That day was called the day of Chibot Chariyos. Sounds almost like the only time that they would bang the Chariyos, these date palm fronds, was Oisei Hayoim. So was it really done for 7 days, or maybe just that day? If you look at the end of the Mishnah on page 45a, it sounds like maybe it was only done that day. So Tais says it's lav davka. Maybe you can't really bring a proof from that. This that the Mishnah says is that Oisei Hayoim, it's lav davka yom echad. Not necessarily is it 1 day. I'm not sure if this is what Tosfos means, but I think he might mean that that day they would call Yom Chibot Chariyos. The other days they wouldn't call it that, but they would do it. They would do the lulav, this the same thing we do with the aravos. They would do with their chariyos shel dekel, with their date palm fronds. And so, but that day was called Yom Chibot Chariyos. And it was special for that day. That day was the 7 times around and so on. I mean, the truth is that the other opinion also says, so when Rabbi Yochanan says Yom was called Yom Kibbutz Chariyos, it sounds maybe like in comparison to the other opinion that day had a unique name. Maybe the other days were not called that, maybe. But in any event, Tosfos understands that Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika, he's learning it very similar to the way the other opinions learn to use the arabas to make an araba ceremony. That's how he learns to make a Chariyos Shel Dekel ceremony. That's what. But then Tosfos says, however, what about Reb Levi? Reb Levi he's learning this from a svara. He's just coming up with this idea. You know what? Let's use date palm fronds. So he says, Reb Levi, he's explaining Reb Yochanan ben Broika that he's making some type of a nice idea, a little drush, a little like, it's cute, definitely a nice thing, like a tamar. He's not learning it from a pasuk. It's a siman yafa. It's a good sign for the praise of the Yidden. They only have a lev echad to Hashem. They only have one heart to Hashem. Look at that. So he says it's possible that maybe it was only done one day, and they did not exclude the arava from this ceremony. They would do both. You can't say that Reb Levi would argue on the other opinions about the arava. They would add this. It was also nice siman yafa. It was like a good symbolic thing. So the way Tosfos understands it is that the machlokes of Rav Huna's way of explaining Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika and Reb Levi's way of explaining Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika is if this was a substitute or it was in addition. Rav Huna holds it was a substitute. Rav Levi holds it's in addition. And it seems that it's based on the fact that it's only a svara, it's only a logical thing that Reb Levi says. He's not basing it on a source, but just a nice idea. And therefore, Tosfos understands that it must be a additional type of thing rather than a substitute. Okay, so that's the Tosfos over here. And now comes the next Gemara. The next Gemara is Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Lulav Shiva. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. And here we're talking about the bracha. This does become a little confusing because we have to compare it to other mitzvahs as well. When do you need to say a second bracha? When you do something. So it's almost like a famous question on Shavuos. You stay up all night. Do you need to say Berachas HaTorah the next morning? If you go to sleep, the night might have been the cutoff period, or the sleep is the cutoff period. What happens if you didn't sleep? You stayed up all night. It becomes a big shiloh. In some places, they specifically try to have someone who did go to sleep to be able to say the brachas in the morning of Berachas HaTorah and have everyone in mind on Shavuos morning when everyone stays up. Only they have one person who went to sleep in order to be able to be mitzi, have in mind everyone else to fulfill the mitzvah of fulfill the bracha of Berachas HaTorah, because otherwise it's questionable. Where is the cutoff? So the same thing applies to other mitzvahs. We need to know when is the cutoff. The sukkah. You recite one bracha at the beginning of Sukkot, and you're dwelling in the sukkah. I'm dwelling all 7 days. Or is there some type of cutoff? So here comes the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel. And this is maybe 10 lines up from the bottom of the page, maybe 9 lines up from the bottom of the page. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Lulav Shiva. For 7 days, we shake lulav. We say the bracha on the lulav. On this, in other words, we shake it for 7 days and we say the bracha. We say the bracha on all 7. Lulav is Shiva, means the bracha is for all 7 days. Sukkah Yom Echad, but Sukkah, you only say it one day. And the first time you do it, you make the bracha Leisha Basukkah, and that's it. You don't do it the first time you enter. Now, the Gemara says, my timer, what's the reason? Lulav the mafsike leilos miyamim. Lulav is separated, is interrupted, is a cutoff, because the nights are mafsik the mitzvah. They separate the mitzvah. So therefore, you only do it by day, and you would end up having one day you did the mitzvah, you said the bracha. The next night, at night, there's no more mitzvah. So now comes the next morning, you got to do the bracha again. And so it's mafsik leilos miyam. So kol yom mitzvah ba'api nafshihu. Each day is its own mitzvah. You gotta say a bracha. Sukkah, however, sukkah is like mafsik leilos miyamim. There's nothing that interrupted. The nights don't interrupt the day. You do well in the sukkah, both by day and by night. Kulu shiva kachad yom arichadam. All 7 regarding the mitzvah of sukkah is like one long day, and therefore you say one bracha. You're dwelling in the sukkah the whole 7 days, so say one bracha. Is there anything to interrupt it? Is there anything to stop it? I'm dwelling in the sukkah the whole time. Rabbi Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Chana says the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Sukkah Shiva. Sukkah is 7 days. Velulav Yom Echad. Lulav, you only say the bracha once. So we've got a real argument over here. For Sukkah, you got to say 7 brachas each day. Lulav is one bracha. Once you say the bracha the first day, and that's it. My time. What's the reason? Sukkah daraisa. So the Rabbi Bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yechanan says, you know what? Sukkah is daraisa, and therefore, and even bisman hazeh, it's a mitzvah to dwell in the sukkah all 7 days, and therefore you got to do it all as shiva. You have to say the bracha all 7 days.
What's the bracha on sukkah?
Leisha basukkah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Now, what does he mean really? That sukkah's daraisa, therefore you need 7 days. What interrupts? What are the interruptions that would cause the sukkah to be 7 different brachas? What would interrupt? So the understanding seems to be that every time you would leave the sukkah would be a reason. It doesn't specifically mean 7, and each day is different. It's more when you leave and you come back, that would be a interruption. In other words, so sukkah, you would be reciting more brachas every time. And lulav, you would only say 1 bracha on the first day. And he explains, lulav d'Rabbanan sagile b'chad yoimah. Lulav is d'Rabbanan. Now, what does he mean it's d'Rabbanan? He means on the later days of Sukkot, lulav is d'Rabbanan. It's only on the first day that it's d'Oraisa, and therefore you don't say a bracha according to Reb Yechanan. Rabbi Bar Chana says this in the name of Reb Yechanan, that you don't say a bracha on a d'Rabbanan. This is a regular d'Rabbanan. The rabbis established Zeichel HaMikdash, that you should commemoration of the Beis Hamikdash. You should shake lulav all 7 days, and in the time of Beis Hamikdash, in the Beis Hamikdash, they would actually shake it all 7 days. And so this commemoration for the Beis Hamikdash, so it's rabbinic, and you don't say the bracha when it's rabbinic. But on the first day, it's biblical. The first day of Sukkot nowadays is biblical, so then you would say the bracha on the first day, and the other days you do not recite a bracha. And this would be his opinion, that you don't say a bracha on a rabbinic law. Now, in the Beis Hamikdash, what would Rabbi Yechanan have said? Would you say a bracha each day? In the Beis Hamikdash, it was biblical. When we had a Beis Hamikdash, they would shake the lulav in the Beis Hamikdash, the mitzvah was biblical every single day. So would Rabbi Yechanan agree there that you say a bracha each day? Yes, because then it's biblical. Then, of course, you would say a bracha each day. But regarding nowadays, when it's only rabbinic, there he says you don't say a bracha. What about Sukkah? Sukkah is biblical, all the days of Sukkah. So you say a bracha every time. So this is the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, basically Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. It's a machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan. Now the Gemara says, Ki Yasser Ravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan Echad Zeh v'Echad Zeh Shiva. When Ravin came, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Sukkah or Lulav, both, you need a bracha all 7 days. Sukkah is all 7 days. That's what Ravin said. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel said Sukkah is Yom Echad. So Ravin comes along and says, no. Sukkah is every day, and Lulav is also every day. Now comes Rabbi Yosef, you should take what Rabba Bar Chana said in your hands, that Sukkah needs a bracha every day, not like Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel that holds that Sukkah is only 1 day, but rather that you have to say a bracha every single day, and take that. You should take that halacha. The kulu amiroi kaime kavasei b'sukkah, because all the amiroim hold like him regarding Sukkah. Rabbi Bar Chana, Ravin, they all seem to hold that that you need a bracha on Sukkah every single day. So it's echad zeh v'echad zeh. Whether it's Sukkah, whether Lulav, you need a bracha all 7 days. Taisus over here brings out this concept. He says it's not exactly the same, Sukkah and Lulav. If you look on the bottom, Taisus says they're not exactly the same. Lulav, you'd say a bracha every single day, even though it's midrabanan. He says that by Lulav, you only say a bracha once a day. He says Sukkah, whenever you enter, you go to eat, to drink, to sleep, well, we'd say a bracha each time, similar to tefillin. If you take your tefillin off and then you put it back on, so each time you would say another bracha, especially if you go to the bathroom and so on, do something, you remove your mind from the tefillin. So the putting on the tefillin each time, you'd say another bracha. And Sukkah, if you have another meal to eat, even though you ate a meal already, you would say another bracha. Same thing as tefillin. Each time you want to put it on, that's a mitzvah. And Lulav, it's a 1 mitzvah a day type of thing. But the others, it's really a obligation. Every time you are going to eat a meal, you have an obligation to eat in a sukkah. Every time you want to do tefillin, you have an obligation. Every time that you're going to be putting tefillin on, that's a mitzvah. We're really supposed to put on tefillin every day, all day. And so so it's not exactly the same, even though the Gemara sounds like it's the same. Taisus comes in and spells out that echad zeh v'echad zeh, that Ravin said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, whether this, whether that. No. This this or that. They both are all Shiva. It's not exactly the same. Sukkah could be much more than 7 brachas. Every time you go in the Sukkah, you leave, you come back, you say another bracha. Sukkah is multiple brachas, and Lulav is also multiple brachas, but not the same. Lulav was once a day, and Sukkah could be many times, multiple. Okay. Now, all the Amoraim follow. They seem to say this. And it's also interesting because normally we would say Rabbi Yochanan, Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, halacha to Rabbi Yochanan. Rashi brings, they all follow Rabbi Yochanan. We follow him. Ishmei de Rabbi Yochanan, kaimei kavasei b'sukkah. We follow Rabbi Yochanan regarding sukkah, that you say a bracha every time. In Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Yochanan. When you have an argument between Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, the halacha follows Rabbi Yochanan. So it sounds like it only follows him because all the Amayroim follow Rabbi Yochanan. In other words, the Gemara says because Kulu Amayroy Kaimi Kavasei. Not because there's a machlokes Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, but it sounds like the reason is because the Amayroim they hold like him. I guess you could say they all are quoting, they all agree that this is what Rabbi Yochanan said. I guess you could say that because they all agree that this is what Rabbi Yochanan said, so therefore it makes sense that was what Rabbi Yochanan really said, and we'll say that Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yochanan. I guess you could learn it that way. Kula amiroi kaimi kavosei b'sukkah. Kaimi kavosei b'sukkah. They all say in his name, they all follow him regarding Sukkah.
So why isn't anybody saying that the psukim are different?
No, just 1 second. What I was bringing out, I just want to mention, what I was bringing out is that if the Amayroim, if these later rabbis were not sure about what Rabbi Yochanan said, so then we would follow Shmuel. Even though halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan against Shmuel, but if we weren't sure about Rabbi Yochanan's statement, so we follow Shmuel. But because all the Amayroim seem to agree that this is what Rabbi Yochanan said, so we follow Rabbi Yochanan, because in an argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Shmuel, we follow Rabbi Yochanan. Here we know Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Okay, yes, Jeffrey.
So the psukim are different. It says Ba'asukos Teshivu Shivas Yomim. So, but it says by Yorishon L'Kachtev Lachem for the lulav. So right. So why doesn't anybody say that if it says Ba'asukos Teshivu Shivas Yomim, then every day you have to say the bracha? It would be logical, right? But with the lulav, since we are substituting the other 6 days, since we are not in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, that's one of the arguments, right? One is when the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and one is when not the time of the Beis Hamikdash. So we're adding a bracha the other days, but actually, you would only have to say it one day.
Okay, so Jeffrey's asking that, from the pasuk, it does sound Sukkos Teshu Shivas Yamim. That's like 7 separate mitzvahs, 7 times, seven days, 7 Sukkos Teshu Shivas Yamim. You're supposed to dwell 7 days. It sounds like maybe each day you should have your own bracha, and wouldn't that be a good proof? So, what do you think? Anyone want to answer Jeffrey's question? Do you think it's a proof from the pasuk Sukkos Teshu Shivas Yamim? Does that sound like 7 brachas, 7 mitzvahs, 7 days, 7 mitzvahs, and it says by lulav. It sounds like it's a 1 day, 1 time mitzvah. Say 1 bracha. Anyone want to help us over here? So I guess the discussion about lulav being 1 day, you can't really bring a proof from the pasuk because in truth, the pasuk does say only to say 1 bracha and only 1 time. It's 1 day mitzvah. So you're 100% right about lulav, except for the fact that rabbinically we have a decree to shake the lulav on the other days, and on a mitzvah derabanan we hold you do say a bracha. So that would be a reason to say a bracha on the other days. And if there's another rabbi that says no, it's because he holds on a mitzvah derabanan you don't say a bracha. So that's not based on there. You can't argue with the pasuk because that there's no question about. Everyone would agree that it's the mitzvah is 1 day biblically, and you would only say 1 bracha. And the only issue would be on a rabbinic law would you say a bracha. Now we actually even say brachas on minhagim, so we have no problem with saying a bracha on a derabanan. That's the way we paskin that. You say a bracha on derabanans, but there seems to be such an opinion in the Gemara Now you don't say bracha and draban. Okay, so that we can understand. That's not a proof from the pasuk. But what you're asking from lulav, that it says from sukkah, excuse me, basukkah's teshu shivas yamim, that on the sukkah you dwell 7 days. I mean, that does not clearly tell us that it's 7 separate mitzvahs. It's a mitzvah that lasts for 7 days, but you don't have clarity on, is there something that would divide it into 7 separate mitzvahs, or would it be one extended mitzvah that lasts during those 7 days? And I'll give you an example. Let's say you are not hungry one day. So would you have a mitzvah to go against your nature and eat in the sukkah if you're really not hungry, you're not feeling so well? Would you have a mitzvah to go and eat in the sukkah? Well, it says 7 days, and if I don't go today, I'm not fulfilling the mitzvah. It's not clear from the pasuk. Sukkah's Teshu Shivas Yom doesn't necessarily mean you have to make it your business to get into the sukkah every single day of sukkahs, even if you don't feel up to it. Not necessarily is that what it means. Could be it's an extended mitzvah of 7 days, and during these 7 days, that's where your dwelling is, and whatever you do in your dwelling, do it, and you're not obligated to go out of to go and specifically eat in the sukkah. Or let's say you enjoy fasting, you don't want to you don't want to eat. Not that you don't feel good, you feel fine, you're healthy, you're good. But you enjoy, So would you be obligated? Well, there's a mitzvah. Sukkah's Teshu Shivas Yom. I have to dwell in the sukkah 7 days. Do I really have to go there and do an act of dwelling, or the fact that it is my place of dwelling? I happen not to be there now for a day. It's okay. Or if I want to travel, should I make it my business to stop off? One of the days of traveling, I could go 24 hours straight. Or I could make sure to stop it into, Sukkos Teshu Shivas Yom, I have to stop each day. I'll stop and eat in a sukkah. Would that be Inyan? Not necessarily. So again, it's how do you translate the pasuk? Do you see in the pasuk that it's 7 separate brachas also means not only is it 7 separate mitzvahs, but it's 7 separate mitzvahs that are interrupted. That there's something that interrupts them that you would need to recite another bracha. So anyway, that's what it seems like. So I don't know if it's really a proof from the pasuk. Okay, so let's go further. So we have
Rabbi.
Yes, David.
Could you give examples of what we say brachos on that are minhagim?
Well, we've spoken about the Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. That's the one case, and another case would be on Hanukkah when you light the menorah in Shul. The lighting of the menorah in Shul. Hallel on Rosh Chodesh really is a machlokes. I shouldn't make it so obvious that everyone agrees with that. That's not so simple that everyone agrees that you make a bracha on a minute. But we discussed it, and there's a big Tosfos that we talked a few of the ideas from Tosfos. It was a little back, two pages back, but anyway, it's a big topic. Okay, so the Gemara continues here and says that Meisvei, they asked the student scholars. Meisvei is the student scholars asked the contradiction. Who'd they ask a contradiction? On Rabbi Yochanan. What is the source? What is the source that they bring from? A brisa. It says if a person or Tosefta, lulav the atzma, if a person makes a lulav for himself, so Oimer, he says, we're now on page 46a. He says a bracha shachiyanu, person who makes a lulav for himself, and he recites a bracha shachiyanu after he finishes putting together. He's tying it together with the adasim and the arabais. So if he's doing it for himself, he says the shachiyanu. Now, Netaloi, if he takes it to fulfill the mitzvah, Lotzes bite to fulfill the mitzvah. He says bracha shachiyanu says if it's fun until less lulav. He says the bracha on lulav. Now, and even if he said the bracha on the first day, he repeats the bracha and he says al natilas lulav all 7 days each time he does it. He says sukkah. Now comes the sukkah law. If a person makes a sukkah for himself, builds himself a sukkah, Iyar says, Baruch Shachianu Kimanu. Says, Baruch Shachianu. Nichnas leishev ba. He enters to dwell in the sukkah. Iyar, he says, Asher Geshem Tzeitzuvtanu leishev basukkah. He says a bracha leishev. V'kiven sheberach yom rishon shuv einay mevarech. And once he says the bracha on the first day, he no longer says the bracha on the other days. Now, what does this sound like? It sounds like sukkah is a one bracha mitzvah, and lulav is a 7 bracha mitzvah. Lulav, you got to do all 7. But sukkah, you say the bracha once. Kasha lulav al lulav. It's a contradiction, lulav on lulav, because Rabbi Yochanan said one thing and the Tosefta says another thing. Kasha sukkah sukkah. It's a contradiction, sukkah on sukkah, because Rabbi Yochanan said one thing and then the Tosefta says the opposite. The Tosefta says sukkah, you say a bracha once and that's it. Once you may say the bracha once. So the Gemara says Bishleim lulav al lulav kasha. It's good. You could say lulav on lulav is not a question. Kan bizman shebeis hamikdash kayom. Now it's talking about, here it's talking about when the Beis Hamikdash is around, and there would be a mitzvah to shake the lulav every single day, and you would say a bracha. Kan bizman shebeis Beis Hamikdash kayom. Here is when the Beis Hamikdash is not around, and the obligation biblically is only on the first day. And the other days is only drabanan, and you don't say a bracha on drabanan. And that was the way we understood it. Ella, but sukkah, asukah, kasha. How are you going to translate? How are you going to explain the contradiction? Reconcile the contradiction by sukkah, from sukkah to sukkah. Do you say one bracha? Do you say 7 brachas? The Tosefta says one bracha. The Rabbi Yochanan says 7 brachas, or each day. Or multiple brachas, he really means you say multiple brachas. The Gemara says Tanoi, really a machlokes Tanoim. The Tanya, because it was taught in a brisa. Tefillin calls man shemanichon mevarich aleihen. Or every time you put the tefillin on, you say a bracha. Even if you take them off 100 times, you say a bracha. Whenever you put it on, different rabbi. The rabbis say, you say one bracha shachris, you don't say a bracha the rest of the day. And the same thing would apply to sukkah, that once you put it on, you say a bracha, you don't, that would be there would be such a view, like the rabbis, that you don't say another bracha, and you would continue the one long extended mitzvah. It's one long mitzvah, and it's like if you take off your tefillin and then put them right back on. You don't. It's one mitzvah. You don't say another bracha. So that's the understanding of the Gemara, that really there's 2 opinions. You have the opinion of Rabbi, that was like Rabbi Yochanan, that you would say a bracha every single time, and you have the opinion of the rabbis. So the same thing. So that argument that we see by tefillin would basically be the same argument by sukkah. Okay, we're gonna stop here. Everyone have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.
Thank you, Rabbi.